Previously on Podcast Without Pretense.
Do you want Kylo Ren? Because this is how we get Kylo Ren.
Are we on me because we're supposed to start? Oh, hi.
Think about it. A whole new network of people to disappoint.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Strickland.
I'm not Jonathan Strickland.
I'm Eric Sandine. I'll just leave Ayaz out of this one.
And together we make and Justin Eric Sandine, because the Jonathan Strickland and the not Jonathan Strickland annihilate one another in that sort of matter antimatter kind of way.
Yeah, so today it'll just be Eric Sandine's his manifesto. Take it away, Eric.
So what's the deal with airline food?
That's right. If you're listening to the audio version, that was Eric Sandine's terrible Jerry Seinfeld impression, but through a Jonathan Strickland filter. True story.
So,
I do an okay
guys...
Strickland, but I do a horrible Strickland doing Seinfeld.
That's fair. And so my most recent episode of Forward Thinking that went live was about DARPA putting in a $60 million investment in the development of an implantable device that would be able to translate human thought into machine language for the purposes of interfacing with technology, specifically originally for therapeutic purposes. And in it, I actually do a 1980s stand-up comedian bit. It's a little cutaway gag, and I was so proud of it. And I watched it. I was like, yeah, that's just as cringeworthy as I had set out to make it. So succeeded.
So whoever had 30 seconds in on the pool of when Jonathan would do a plug for one of his other shows, you won. And
okay, wait. Let me go ahead and get another thing out of the way. Fuck you, Comcast. Yeah. So if I do end up sounding more robotic than usual, or I completely cut out, it's because of Comcast and my questionable connection to it.
What a great way to just leave the show whenever you want in the middle of it. If I cut out, it's the ISP, right, guys? Fuck you guys. Wink.
Right.
Wink.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is that I actually like talking to you assholes, so it actually does legitimately frustrate me.
There's the title.
Jonathan,
I like talking to you assholes.
Yeah. And I mean you guys too out there in the chat room.
Wow. Wait. Wow.
Best podcast of 2014. All right. So one of the things I was just thinking about talking about. All right. First of all, we typically watch movies on this show and then we talk about them, and it's all in an effort to see how long we can pay attention to really bad movies with no distractions present. However, neither Ayaz nor Eric have had the chance to watch the movie. I think, Eric, it was officially your pick, although I think I pretty much bullied you into picking it. Yeah. The movie is 4:44, as in 4 a.m., 44 minutes after 4 a.m. And I went ahead and watched it, but Eric and Ayaz haven't had a chance to. And this led to an unusual situation. I think unprecedented, actually. And Ayaz, I believe you have the email chain up.
Yeah, well, I asked if we were going to do the show tonight because sometimes we don't do the show. And I said I hadn't seen the movie, and Eric said the same thing, hadn't watched the movie either. But Jonathan replied with that to say, I'm going to give both you guys an out on this movie if you want. Seriously. I watched the whole thing. There is nothing to stand from you guys having to endure to, unless you just want to have an epic what the fuck episode. So my response was, epic WTF, sounds great to me. Aren't you in Hawaii? Which I don't really have to explain why I said that. And Eric said, yeah, I'm kind of down for epic WTF. And so the rest of it's not really relevant.
So I just wanted on record that I gave both of those assholes an out of this film because I watched the whole goddamn thing. And if I tell you it's not worth your time, you should probably listen. But they're apparently determined to check it out. So at some point we will have a discussion about 444.
This to me, if you think it's really bad, so bad that it's the first time ever where you're like, oh yeah, you know what, you guys can skip it. That's got to be monumentally bad. And I think this movie's still under the 2 hour mark. Is it 90 minutes or so?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is surprisingly short and yet feels like a lifetime. It's let me clarify a couple things. One, the acting for the most part isn't terrible, but I found it really hard to watch for multiple reasons. Nothing like particularly, shocking or anything like that. Although I will say this is not a movie to watch with little children present at all.
Is that because of nudity and or violence or language?
Nudity and drug use and some language, but there's like a fairly.
Who's actually rated?
I don't think it was rated. I think it's a non-rated film. There's actually a fairly graphic sex scene, early in the movie. Like within the first.
So it's not a bus movie.
Not a bus movie. No.
I think for every movie we do, we should have that in the notes saying whether it's a bus movie or not, no matter what. Maybe that's we can have an award system based on buses, how bus friendly it is.
This would be zero buses. Zero bus friendly. I mean, maybe after you get past the first
zero bus friendly. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, you would need to be able to pause the movie multiple times during transfers for you to be able to skip ahead so that you're not looking at the lead actress's boobs at some point. By the way, the lead actress, as I learned when I started looking into this film a bit more, because I started to wonder why the hell was I experiencing this torture, is actually apparently the romantic partner of the film's writer and director. And she acts like the romantic interest of a writer-director, not an actress. So when I said the acting is mostly okay, she's the reason why I have to say mostly okay. But yeah, it's I don't know, guys. I'll say this: it's not as bad as Rock and Roll Frankenstein.
Well, there we go.
It's not like we found a new bar to measure everything against, but
damn it, it's got to happen at some point.
I really hope
some film worse.
Oh, I'm sure there are films that are worse. I just hope we don't encounter them. I mean, if we watch something like I Spit on Your Grave, then sure.
Yeah.
But I don't want us to seek that out.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. I don't think we've actively chosen to try to find not as horrible films, because we did have to subject ourselves to it at one point. So there's one thing when you're punishing two other people, but when it's like you also have to watch it.
Yeah, and the fact that we're gonna have to watch that again pretty soon, according to Ayaz's declaration, that at episode 150 we watch Rock and Roll Frankenstein again.
Is that how this show works? Can I just make any declaration and you guys have to follow it? Because that's kind of neat.
You were really adamant about it. And here's the thing is that you've set an expectation in our literally dozen of listeners. And now we have to deliver.
I think Kia Stacy would understand if we chose not to watch the thing. Now, I don't want to back out of that because I do want to see this thing after watching so many shitty movies to see if this thing is as horrible as I remember. Although I'm pretty sure it's going to be. And really
I guess we've sort of developed a little bit more of a language about criticizing films too, as we've done this. Like we've become not actual. I wouldn't go so far as to call ourselves film critics, but we've certainly become a little more observant when we watch these things, and I think we've gotten better at articulating why certain movies are terrible.
That first episode where we talk about Rock and Roll Frankenstein, we're like, movie bad. And then we started saying, moving picture bad. Dialogue bad. And that was basically a recap. So we're going to try to do better on the re-review. Maybe the movie will not have improved, but perhaps our ability to explain why the movie is shit will have improved.
Well, and we have a much larger base to compare it against at this point. So,
Yeah. So before we started the show, I actually watched a different film, a fun film called Laser Team. Have you guys heard of Laser Team?
I have not.
It's done by the guys from Rooster Teeth, the same guys who did Red versus Blue and a ton of other stuff. And it's their first feature-length film under the Rooster Teeth Productions. And they raised some of the money for their budget from crowdfunding. And then they received funding through other production studios. But the crowdfunding is what allowed them to secure more funding for the movie. And the movie just came out, and it's a science fiction comedy, and the basic premise is that there's an evil race of aliens that are coming to Earth and are going to destroy it. But a helpful race of aliens have created a power suit that will allow an Earth champion to defend the planet. And so they send the suit to Earth, and they explain that it's going to take several years for the suit to get to Earth. So the military raises and trains a kid to become Earth's champion. His sole purpose in life is to put on the elements of this power suit and do battle on behalf of the Earth. But of course, a group of jackasses end up encountering the suit before the hero can, and they each put on a different piece of it, and then they can't take it off again, so they by default have to become Earth's heroes. That's the basic premise, and it's entertaining. You know, it's a fun, goofy movie, and if you're a fan of Rooster Teeth, you'll recognize a lot of cameos, and you'll catch a lot of the nods to some of the other Rooster Teeth productions that have happened in the past. So it's in like limited release, but I recommend it. I mean, it's a fun film. If you like sci-fi comedy, it's a fun film.
Sounds like Ender's Game meets Iron Man.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and it's not highbrow necessarily, but it certainly didn't go as juvenile as I expected it to, based upon some of the other stuff that Rooster Teeth has done. So it was a nice middle ground.
You know, I watched a very light.
I think I've only watched Red versus Blue.
Yeah. They've done a ton of other stuff. They've got like live action shorts that they've done, and they've done a couple of other machinima pieces. And they also they have tons of videos through Achievement Hunter and Funhouse and some other like sister sites at this point. But yeah, Red versus Blue is probably what they're best known for. You were gonna say something, Ayaz?
Yeah, I haven't seen their work. I was just gonna say I watched a very lighthearted movie the other day called Revenant. Just laughs, so many laughs, and it was so warm and fuzzy. I recommend it if you're looking for like a good family movie. I think the kids will love it.
I saw a film that was based off the same story. It was actually done in an animated style, and it was called JoJo, the Bear Who's a Rapist.
Mm-hmm. Right. That was a little bit darker than the movie I saw.
It's actually done by the same company that did a talking cat ! Question mark !
But there was no question mark with the JoJo one. It
was very clear a bear rape.
Mm-hmm.
And by that I mean a bear that has performed the rape, not someone raping a bear.
Okay. If on a different day I would suggest that as a title. But
okay, so and for those who may not understand what that is even referencing and just thinking that I am the worst human being in the world. Well, one, I am the worst human being in the world. That's fine. But no, the reason I even make that is because before the movie came out, there was this weird like rumor that in the sequence where the character Leonardo DiCaprio plays, who is actually based off a real person, when he is attacked and mauled by a bear, that the bear actually rapes him, which is totally not what happens. First of all, I believe the bear in the movie is a mama bear that is just attacking him because they happen to be close to her cubs. At least that's, I think, how it was in the original story about this actual person. But yeah, that's why I made that reference. I'm still a terrible person.
The
Eric,
fact that you had to explain the joke is it. Yeah.
Well, because some people may not know the reference, right? I mean,
yeah, and also
you
bear has
gotta
a
at
different
least-
meaning if we're not talking about like a actual literal
Oh.
bear.
That's
I
true.
was not even making that leap, but yeah.
No, you're
That's
not.
true.
You're not getting your leaping bears right in your head or whatever.
Yeah.
That's going.
So
But
I've heard other, like, I've got some friends who do video work. They're actually coworkers of mine who saw The Revenant, and I know what they thought of it. What did you think of it, Ayaz?
in all seriousness, I thought it was excellent. It was just a beautiful looking film. Gutsy. It's really gutsy. I'm not saying that it. There's a lot of time for things to set in, and it can be a little disturbing. And I thought that was some really somewhat brave filmmaking, because I think this could be recut. It could be shorter. The story could be a little bit more linear, but it's somewhat challenging. And I liked that because this movie was very different than what I was expecting. So all I thought was, okay, some kind of wilderness movie. It's kind of what it is. And I didn't realize it was based on a true story until I read the trivia afterwards. But it's really, really good, I think.
Interesting. The Red Letter Media guys did their sort of review of it, and they said that it's Tom Hardy that's in that movie, right? He plays one of the main characters, like the antagonist.
Yeah, he does.
They said that Tom Hardy was phenomenal, that he was absolutely amazing, but they also said that Leonardo DiCaprio was essentially Leonardo DiCaprio. That they didn't feel that his performance was particularly
What's wrong with
strong.
that?
Well, if you're trying to play a character, Eric, you're not familiar with the acting process. See, when you're an actor, you're attempting to take on a role. And more often than not, that role is someone that you are not. So your goal is to be not you, but rather the role.
Well, all right.
Which is why, when I show up in a musical, I don't say, now I'm Jonathan Strickland, and normally I would not be singing right now. I would just voice my thoughts, or I wouldn't say anything at all. It would all be an internal monologue. But because this is a musical, I'm going to sing now. I just wanted to let you know before I started singing, hit the music.
To be fair, I'm kind of surprised that any acting you do, you don't start it out with, I'm Jonathan Strickland. But
yeah. That's what the program's for, asshole.
So to that criticism, Eric, have you seen the movie?
I haven't seen it yet. I think.
All right,
Yeah.
I think that's not really fair, because there's a great deal of. It's not really spoiling too much, but Tom Hardy has a hell of a lot more lines than DiCaprio does, and DiCaprio's got a lot of other stuff to do. So if people think that's what DiCaprio does when he's himself, that's a pretty fucked up view of what he does on his spare time, because a lot of it is action based, and what he's doing is just trying to survive. So there's not a hell of a lot of, I would say there's not a lot of character development right away, but you get this idea of, okay, this is what this guy's about to do, and this is what he needs to do, and this is what he needs to do for revenge, because always there's a revenge in these kinds of stories. Tom Hardy, if you want to say he's great, it's funny, we're watching it, Liz and I are watching, and she's like, which one is Tom Hardy? I go, the dude who sounds like Bane with an accent. She's like, oh, that one. Basically, Tom Hardy is, you cannot understand what he's saying for the first 5 minutes of the movie, because that his accent is so pronounced. It takes a while to get used to that. Now, granted, that could be part of the acting process, as Jonathan is saying, because, he's really into that character, but his accent's so much heavier than anybody else in that, and his voice is so affected. It's kind of distracting at times, but Tom Hardy is fantastic in that movie too, as well. That's a really minor kind of criticism.
So, Eric, have you seen anything of note since the last time we recorded?
No, we watched Survivor. That's pretty much all we've. I don't think I've watched any movies since we last recorded, actually.
Yeah.
Nope.
I still haven't seen
Survivor's horrible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I was making jokes about Hateful Eight earlier, I have not yet seen it. It's something that I really want to catch, but I don't know when I'm going to have a chance to see it. I want to see it in the theater, but I don't know when I'll get a chance to check it out, because I'm about to head to Hawaii and I don't plan on seeing a movie while I'm in Hawaii. So unless it has a miraculous move to airplane entertainment centers, I don't think I'll be seeing it anytime soon.
Which
Can't
movie
you
is this?
download it for your laptop?
Hateful Eight.
Oh, that, yes.
Hateful Eight? Is that already
No.
available for digital?
Oh, maybe it's
Not legally, no.
Oh no, I guess
well,
not. Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
Well, I'm not saying you would,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, you can get it. I think that was like that caused a giant fervor fairly
Well,
recently.
that was the one where the group that was supposedly responsible issued an apology afterwards, saying that the movie was so good that they felt bad about stealing it in the first place.
Oh, it's like the opposite of when Wolverine was leaked. X-Men Origins Wolverine. So that was wow. That was a
Yeah,
pile of shit.
that was one where they were like, this movie isn't worth paying for, so therefore we're going to watch it for free. And I'm like, if it's not worth paying for, then why is it worth watching?
It wasn't worth distributing illegally. That's how bad it was. That's it was a crime against server management to put that fucking movie and wasting hard drive space, because I did not like
It was
X-Men
also-
Origins Wolverine.
It was also a waste of server managers, like actual restaurant employees, for unrelated reasons.
Yeah, we can't get into that here. I'll tell you on the bus later.
Yeah, so yeah, I haven't. The only other thing I've done is I've been trying to catch up on some TV shows, and it's just like stuff like Agent Carter and Gallivant. I was catching up on those this week before I head off, and I'm hoping that I can catch the next episodes while I'm on vacation just to stay current. But that's pretty much been it. Otherwise, it's just been work and getting ready for this trip. So I have very little to contribute.
Did anybody watch the new X-Files, Jonathan?
Nope.
Damn.
I hear
Come
that
on
or at least I think the AV Club said that the first episode was so much of a throwback to the old X-Files that they got frustrated. They actually said, what was it? It was what was the movie that came out where they were? Oh, Star Wars. Yeah, they said if you thought Star Wars Episode 7 was too much of a throwback to Star Wars Episode 4, you are going to go bonkers at the first couple of episodes of the X-Files.
Yeah, I mean it definitely is a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was like watching an X-Files episode, and they also kept it tight and neat so that they could move like straight into their new plot line. They're just like, oh yeah, here's all the characters you want to see, and we're off. You know,
I just I hope that they avoid the problem that I had with the first run of that show, which is where everyone knew that there was this big arcing storyline that was supposed to go through the entire series, and that ended up being an anchor around the neck of that show, to the point where it really started to suffer, especially in the later seasons. As they attempted to,
I mean, there's only
to pay off those storylines.
They're only doing like 6 episodes, right? So I don't think they can really fall down that trap, because, I mean, we're not going to have a Monster of the Week episode like we did originally. Like, you can't really do that with 6 episodes.
Which is unfortunate in that some of my favorite
some of those
episodes
were awesome.
Actually, yeah, most of my favorite X-Files episodes fall into that category. I didn't like the conspiracy related episodes very much because it got so convoluted. And I mean, I remember saying this at the time. I kept on saying, the way this is unfolding, it feels like Mulder and Scully are the only two people in the FBI not in on this conspiracy. Because it just, every time they would reveal a new character, they seem to be part of the problem. I'm like, are you kidding me? Is there anyone working for the FBI besides Mulder and Scully who don't know about all this stuff? And the answer was apparently no.
No, they're the two.
Now, Eric, can you think of like what your favorite episode of the X-Files, the original run, what it was?
I don't remember. What was one of them? Home. That one was really good. I think that was the one that was originally. It was like originally banned.
Yeah, that's my favorite. That's my favorite of all time. That one is super creepy.
Super dark.
It's like 3 or 4 seasons into the show, but it's Yeah, it is graphic and terrifying and disgusting. Yeah, that's a great
It
episode.
catches
I
you
also
pretty
like
off
the
guard.
one yeah. They also did a couple of different vampire episodes, but one of them I remember in particular, I don't remember what the title was, but I remember that it had a lot of he said she said moments where Mulder and Scully are talking to Skinner, is it, and trying to explain what had happened, and
Oh,
they had slightly different versions of how things unfolded.
and
There's a moment,
I remember
yeah,
that one, and it tells the story from both sides as
yeah. The best moment I think in that episode is where Scully claims she came into Mulder's hotel room, and this was after Mulder had been drugged, I think, and he was like passed out on the bed, and he suddenly sits bolt upright and starts reciting the lyrics to Shaft, and
yeah.
and then Mulder's like, "I did not," and it cuts back, to the office. Also, there was a moment where they explained that vampires have this obsessive compulsive need to count things. And so there's a point where a vampire is about to attack Mulder. He's been drugged by eating tainted pizza, and the pizza delivery guy is a vampire. And so he starts to advance on Mulder, and out of desperation, Mulder reaches into his pocket, and despite the fact he had not been doing this for several episodes, pulls out a handful of sunflower seeds because he was always chewing on them in like the first couple of seasons. Throws the sunflower seeds, and the vampire immediately goes like, "Oh man!" and then just bends over and starts counting them. And that's how Mulder survives because he buys himself enough time for someone to come rescue him, essentially.
Mm.
And so that was one of those great episodes. Ayaz, did you ever watch X-Files while it was on?
I'd watched it on and off. The one that got me was the one that was right after the Super Bowl. I had to look it up. It was about some monster that I think ate cancer. It was the episode is called Leonard Betts, I think. I just looked it
Oh,
up.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's it. And that one was really good, and it had to be since it was the show right after the Super Bowl, because if you're gonna hook people, that was the time. So I watched it for a little bit. This is around college time, so I didn't watch it religiously or anything, and I tried to get back into it fairly recently, but I just didn't feel like it. And I have no geek cred. Not really worried about that, honestly. But the episode you're talking about sounds like it'd be fun, Jonathan.
Yeah, there were a few
There's
that were more lighthearted. The Jose Chung ones were good too, as I remember.
There's also a problem with. There's a huge problem for me with X-Files, and here's what it is. It has nothing to do with the actual show. It's this the Skinner, right? Mitch Pileggi. He was the narrator of the show I used to watch called Magic's Biggest Secrets Revealed, or something like that. Do you guys remember
the one
show?
where they had Magician X with the masked magician?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's revealed to be Valentino, which the guy, when he was revealed to be the magician, he actually would go touring with the mask on because nobody wanted to watch Valentino. But anyway, Mitch Pileggi is the announcer, the narrator, and he is full of such like not bizarre, just salacious jokes about the assistants so often, and it's just so sleazy that when I watch anything else, all I keep hearing is like this, like, I bet she could fit into there. That's such a great waste. That'd be such a waste of space, or something like that. And you're like, this is so stupid. Who wrote this? And then I'm trying to take him seriously on X-Files, and I can't, because I'm expecting to say something like dumb to Scully at any moment of like, I can be your badge holder or whatever.
I don't think I ever saw the final episode. I watched on and off, and like I said, I like the self-contained monster episodes, but I found the conspiracy stuff to be so dumb and complicated to the point where I couldn't even keep up with anything anymore, and I didn't like the show enough to take the effort to fix that, right? Where you're like, okay, who knows what? How was Mulder's sister involved? What is the black oil? Who is this big assassin dude? Who's the cigarette smoking man? Who's the well manicured man?
There's a list on, I think, the X-Files wiki, where they just list like the 20 or so episodes that are just the story arc. So like you can just go through and be like, oh, I get it now.
Or you can skip them.
Or you can
yeah,
skip on and just watch Monster of the Week.
the other big problem, obviously, with that show is that it's based upon the idea that Scully would never ever really start to buy into Mulder's belief system, despite the fact of repeatedly being proven
She's seen
wrong.
this stuff multiple times. Yeah.
It actually it reminds me of a moment in The Simpsons. There's an episode of The Simpsons where at one point I think Bart or Lisa, it must be Bart or maybe even Homer, says to Marge, "Don't you ever get tired of being wrong?" And she pauses for a second, then she says, "Sometimes." And I'm like, that's Scully. That's Scully. Yeah. She's always wrong. Like Mulder is always right, or at least more right than not right. Sometimes he's
But Mulder also doesn't know he's right most of the time.
Yeah, but that doesn't change anything. It actually makes it more
doesn't change anything. Yeah.
I mean, even in the fucking episode where they go after Big Blue, the lake monster, and I remember this because it was supposed to be set in Georgia. Even in that episode where it turns out it's not a lake monster, it's just an oversized alligator, at the very end of the episode, they have the lake monster come out of the lake and essentially wink to the camera. And I'm like, God damn it! Also, the other thing that irritated me was before the very first episode, when Fox aired the very first episode, the pilot, they had a card that came on before the episode started that said the series was based on real files of the FBI. And I was like, oh, fuck you. I'm like, come the fuck on. This is ridiculous. Just
wait a second.
Say, yeah.
That's always, I love that when something's based on or inspired by. It's just, that's such a giant leap. There's a chance that there's like a file that has like 3 lines that said, guy said he saw something, a swamp monster, turned out to be nothing.
That's not enough. That's not enough to hang a card before a show on, right? Like I like it. I like it when a movie does it where it's just completely a lie. I think that's funny. Fargo did that, which I thought was really amusing. And if it's something that is attempting to be a dramatization of an actual event where, you know, the goal is to be entertaining while also informing people, and they acknowledge the fact that, yeah, some of the shit that you're going to see, it's not really representative of what actually happened because we've had to combine people into single characters or maybe break someone out into a couple of characters, whatever. But that served as the inspiration for this story. That's fine too. But to say like, yeah, once the FBI interviewed a guy and he said that there was a leech boy who could move through the water system inside this building, that's not enough to base a show on it. There's
an episode of The Simpsons where they're doing a reenactment. At the end, the narrator says very quickly, "Dramatization may never have happened." That's all they got to do. Just add that part at the end. Like, I like the "may never have happened." It's a total catch-all.
I think also the thing that irritated me was when the X-Files came out. That was at the same time that I was really starting to kind of convert my thought processes into skepticism. Like, not that I was ever necessarily a believer in like anything like cryptozoology or UFOs or whatever, but I used to read like all those books all the time. I read about ghosts when I was a kid. I read about ghosts and aliens and monsters. I always thought it was fascinating. I checked all the books out in our school library on the subject and read them multiple times. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know, I want this to be true, but I'm pretty sure it's bullshit. And that was right around the same time that the X-Files came out. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. Like, now there's this thing that's claiming to be representative of a truth out there somewhere. And it's just as I'm like realizing that most of this shit is completely baseless. And the stuff that isn't baseless is entirely misinterpreted.
I think at that time I was watching a lot more Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I was like, "That's my fill of this kind of."
No,
what's the nice way to put it?
Buffy
I understand that, but that's when I got into it because like I was.
Oh,
in
I see. I got you. Same
And like
general.
I could only get into so much bullshit, you know. Like okay, monsters, vampires. Okay, at least this is funny. This is funny. I
Yeah.
like this. This is
But
not what I was expecting.
Buffy wasn't also presented as this actually happened in Sunnydale, California, right?
This
The actual adventures of a cheerleader in California who kills vampires
that's how it should have ended with the title card. That this was all a true story.
based on a true story.
It's a horrible murderer named Buffy who just started killing goth kids.
Yeah.
It didn't just disappear though.
That would have been hilarious. Like, and then it is true that for one day everybody sang.
Yep.
And everyone was quiet for most of the day.
Yeah,
that was the day after.
There's
started
another
singing,
day
like-
where no one talked. Yeah.
Like let's undo the singing by. Actually, I don't know what the order was. Did Hush come first?
Hush came first.
All right, I guess
Yeah,
that
the
makes
silent
sense.
episode came first, and that was again Hush, one of the best episodes of Buffy, easily one of the best episodes of that entire series, at least in my opinion. I think it's probably still my favorite. Once More with Feeling is kind of fun, but it's also dealing with that whole, Buffy is back from the dead, and so she mopes around for 3/4 of a season. Bullshit, and I got tired of that. I think I've mentioned this before. The biggest problem I had with Buffy is that they always had to reset the character at the beginning of every season because you have to have your character grow across the arc of the season. And so at the end of each season, Buffy has learned how to become more independent. She's a stronger character. She's confident in her abilities, and she can go out and kick the bad guy's ass. At the beginning of the next season, they have to reset her to 0. So she has to become insecure and have feelings of inadequacy. And they had to keep inventing reasons for that. And so you would watch the same journey unfold in the next season. And at the end of it, she'd be confident and capable again. Then you have to reset. So, like, there were a couple that made sense. Like, there was the season where she went from high school to college. And you think, okay, well, this is a big change in a person's life. And it could very well be that it's all the mundane stuff that she has to go through. That it, just the fact of trying to make it in college, that could be the stuff that really has her unsettled. It's not necessarily the vampire slaying part. It's all the other stuff. That makes sense. But then there are other seasons where it's just like, well, we got to find some way of doing it. And by the time they got to the point where they kill her off, because that's when the show moved from one network to another network, when she comes back, she spends almost the entire season moping about the fact that she's been brought back from the dead. And that got super old, or at least for me. I was like, I'm so tired of this character being like this. Also, the invention of her sister didn't help.
And we're not spoiling Buffy right now. Clearly, you guys have seen Buffy if you're listening to the show. And if you haven't...
Yeah, if you haven't, the show's been out for fucking ever, so I can't spoil something that's been... There's some point where you've got to say it's okay to talk about this stuff now. That point is not yet here for the Hateful Eight, so don't spoil it for me, you assholes.
No, I had something to say. I just can't say it on air. Let's talk I'll put it somewhere. I'll put this information somewhere else. I need to write this down because it's too stupid to actually verbalize, so talk amongst yourselves.
I can't wait to get the email that has whatever line you're thinking.
I've built it up too much. Do not read this on the air.
Okay. That's fine. I have a feeling that when I read it, I'll just be like, okay.
Okay, you guys go ahead. Actually, we should.
All right, sure.
I think that's a fine point to look forward to the future here. Next time on Podcast Without Pretense.
I honestly wasn't ready.
Oh, don't mind me. That's a blister of mine.
What? No, it's the cat.